Happy Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into another fantastic day of Morning Jocks. Conrad Van Order and Damian Mitchell here with you until 7 o'clock. As man, we have a lot to get into on today's program as we had the third edition of the college football playoff rankings. That came out last night. And I will say the one thing with these rankings is it's hard for me to keep up because we've had three of these so far, and all three of them have been at different times, if you haven't noticed. The first one was at 7, then last week was at 6, and then last night it was at 7:30. Well, really, the actual rankings came out like 7:45.
Yep.
And they did it for 10 minutes, and then they had to go to the Duke basketball game. So it was just kind of a interesting kind of sandwich between some basketball games, and they're just kind of moving it around whatever the ESPN schedule looks like for the week. But nonetheless, I think at this point it's safe to say with the College Football Playoff Committee, as the first couple of weeks, it's like, all right, we're getting our feet wet here. But every year the committee seems to, you could point out a trend, right? Or point out okay, that's what this year's committee values most. That's what's going to be important to this year's committee. Like last year, for example, right? I think we would all agree that they made it pretty clear that at the end of the day, what mattered most was how many games you won, not necessarily who you beat or strength of schedule, things of that metric. It was just, do you have more wins than this other team? Doesn't matter who you played or what your resumes really were. It's just, did you have more wins? Oh, you didn't play anybody? Great, you have more wins. You're going to get in the playoff. That was kind of what their mantra was last year. Okay, so be it. So I think a lot of us this year were wondering, what was this year's mantra going to be? And we finally know what it is, Damian. It matters more who you lose to or how you lose than it does who you beat.
Yep.
So yet again, another year, even in a year where before the season they came out and said that they were going to put more weight behind strength of schedule and strength of record, which they have not done. Very clearly through the first 3 weeks of this. I mean, if that was the case, Texas A&M would have been number one the first rankings, but they were not, even though all of the metrics said that they should be. But clearly they're not doing that, and now this year we know that their most important metric apparently is who did you lose to, how close were those losses, and essentially, did you lose to teams that have a number next to them right now? Because if you didn't, man, we really think quite poorly of you at times. And if that's how it's going to be, so be it. But now we kind of have an idea of what we're going to have to deal with moving forward and how they're going to assess whoever your favorite team is moving forward into Selection Sunday. So let's get into the rankings from last night, and then we can kind of get back into that whole narrative and the precedent that was set last night. So we'll go through the top 12 real quick. Alabama, they fall to number 10. Not a big surprise there. That's what happened in the AP and coaches poll over the weekend after the loss to Oklahoma. But as it stands right now, this is how your college football playoff would look if the season ended today. At number 12, you would have Tulane. They would be the 12 seed. They came in the rankings at number 24. They are the only group of 5 team ranked this week. So John Summerall and the Tulane Green Wave, they would be the 12 seed. That means that in the first round, they would play the 5 seed, who is now Texas Tech. They moved up a spot after Alabama lost. And then, let's see, at the 11 seed, you would still have Miami, just like last week, because they are the highest-ranked ACC team. However, they are most likely not playing in their conference title game. So this will very likely be someone else, and then Miami will have to compete for an at-large bid in order to get in. But for right now, it's Miami. They're at 11. They would play the 6 seed, Ole Miss. Not a lot of movement there. Then you have the 10 seed. I just mentioned that's the Alabama Crimson Tide. They fell 6 spots after the loss to Oklahoma. They would be on the road traveling to Eugene, Oregon, and playing number 7, the Oregon Ducks. At number 9, you have Notre Dame. They would play the new number 8 seed on the road in Norman. That would be the Oklahoma Sooners. So Oklahoma, they move up 3 spots after their win over Alabama. Alabama falls 6 spots. So those would be your first round games there, and then your top 4 remains the same. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, A&M 3, and then Georgia. Well, so I guess it's new. Georgia moves up to 4 after Alabama lost, and they take that 4th spot there. So that's how that would look. Georgia would await the winner of Texas Tech and Tulane. Ohio State would they would get the winner of Notre Dame and Oklahoma. Texas A&M would get the winner of Miami, Ole Miss, and Indiana would get either a rematch with Oregon or they would get to face off with another team with the exact same color scheme or very similar color scheme in the Alabama Crimson Tide there in the second round. So that's what it would look like if it ended today. So we'll get back into the, whole losses versus wins thing here in a minute, Damian, but just your initial thoughts last night when the rankings came out. Really, the big change was obviously going to be Alabama and what happened with them. Were you surprised? Do you agree with where they ended up? What were your kind of takeaways just overall from the rankings last night? What stood out to you?
Yeah, kind of to your point, I thought wins carried more weight than who you lose to, because I don't think you should necessarily get knocked to the 10 spot by losing to a top 12 team. Okay, yeah, you lost to them at home, and for as poorly as you may have played, you still only lost to them by 2 points with a chance to win the football game there with the final possession. So I think Notre Dame's getting the good side of the benefit of the doubt as far as, yeah, you had 2 losses early on, but I think the month of November is now looked at as just so magnified of, if you're not playing your best ball in November, you better not lose a game, because obviously what this committee has shown you is, okay, yeah, when you lose to them and how you lose to them are 2 of the more quote unquote important factors of what they're going to do as far as placing you in the college football playoff rankings. And I don't know. I think Alabama had a stronger argument than Notre Dame did to be that 9-10 spot. You're still on the road for a playoff game, which I understand. And really and truly, I just think that it's difficult for me to really process why you can have Notre Dame higher than Alabama in this situation, because of the fact that, okay, yeah, Alabama went through a stretch where they played nothing but ranked teams, and they handled their business, and the one ranked team that got them is a top 12 football team. Well, right now is in the top 8. Like, they're going to be hosting a playoff game, and the margin is so slim. And I don't know where the discussion starts to weigh, because when you start looking at, strength of schedule, strength of record, Alabama's going to have that over Notre Dame. So
No, it's called the thing that matters the most to them is who did you lose? That's the only reason that you would do that. And that's, again, if that's what they're going to do, at least we know, kind of that's what matters to them. But I agree. I think that's an idiotic way to rank teams, is to value again, it's just, I don't know why it's so hard for these people to understand that you need to recognize teams that play tougher schedules and beat teams that are ranked in the top 25. It's pretty simple, in my opinion. Like, this shouldn't be. And again, I think Notre Dame's a good football team. I don't have a problem with Notre Dame being in the top, 10 and being a team that's going to be in the college football playoff. But I'm sorry, I don't think that. So you're telling me there's a greater difference in your mind in Notre Dame having lost to the 13th best team versus Alabama having lost to a Florida State team that Miami beat by 6 points. So, there's not a huge gap there, obviously, between those teams, but that is a bigger gap in their mind than the fact that Alabama has, 3 wins better than Notre Dame's best win? But Notre Dame lost to 2 teams that have a number next to them, so that's what it matters. So this is let's go to Hunter Yurachek, because this was his debut. Hunter Yurachek had a bad night last night. I'm just going to be honest. Dude gave some really bad answers. And sometimes straight up, if you were watching the show last night, Reese Davis asked him point blank, hey, how does this committee, how are y'all going to assess teams in a conference title game that go and lose, i.e., a 10-2 Alabama that goes and gets a 3rd loss in the SEC title game? Will that be used against them or not? His answer to that was, making a conference title game is a 13th data point.
Seems like a little bit of deflection.
No crap, Hunter. No crap. It's a 13th game. Can it be used again? Again, I get it. It was his first time. Dude looked like a deer in the headlights last night. It was bad. It was bad.
There wasn't much prep.
No, there wasn't, and it got way worse after he got off TV. I think there's a reason they asked him about 3 questions, because they knew that dude wasn't going anywhere. That was a disaster last night. All right, this is his quote. So they do the Q&A, obviously, with media after, the TV broadcast ends, and this is really where you get the good stuff a lot of the time. All right, this was Hunter Yurachek. This is what he had to say last night about Alabama and Notre Dame and why they ended up ranking them where they did. All right, quote, Really, when you break these teams down in the comparison, Notre Dame and Alabama, Notre Dame has losses to 2 teams in the top 13, a 3-point loss against Miami, and then a 1-point loss against A&M. Alabama has a 2-point loss last week against Oklahoma, but they had that loss at the beginning of the season, 31-17 at Florida State, a team that is now 5-5. Okay. Fair. Yeah, they do have that loss. Totally fair. Florida State was up in that game 24-7. They held Alabama to less. Sorry, this is continuing with the quote. They held Alabama to less than 100 rushing yards in that game. That really was a sign of the struggles Alabama was going to have running the ball. You go back and look at Alabama's game against South Carolina, where they scored 2 touchdowns late to win that game, and then the next game against LSU, where they won both of those but didn't run the ball for over 100 yards. Then again, against Oklahoma, they weren't able to move the ball on the ground. So you look at the games that Alabama struggled in, starting the season against Florida State, where they struggled with the ball. That's 2 really good 8-2 teams, but I think you look at the losses of Notre Dame versus the losses of Alabama, and that was one of the defining metrics that we used. So again, not saying that those aren't valid points. I personally, I think it's kind of cool that they, like, if you're going to point out why you have Alabama where they are, I think the fact that they can't run the football, that's a valid reason to have them, ranked lower than another team. But does that overcome the teams that you beat? Again, is that an issue that Alabama has? Absolutely. Did they not still beat all those ranked teams even despite this? Like, that's where I guess they're out here, and there's other quotes going around. I mean, they're giving Oregon credit for beating a bad Penn State team because he literally said, well, that was a different Penn State team back then. No, it wasn't. It's the same team. They're a bad team this year. But you're getting credit for that win, but yet we're going to hold, Alabama to the fire because they lost to a team that's better than Penn State is this year. Mm-hmm. But let's give Indiana big time credit for that one because they don't have anything to prop them up for, so they got to make crap up.
Right. So, why do style points matter in losses, but they don't matter in wins? Because to me, if you look at what Alabama's done, they've beaten Vanderbilt, who's a ranked team. They've gone to Missouri on the road, beat them, who's a ranked team. And they also beat Tennessee, who's a ranked team as well. And my question is, why don't the wins carry weight as far as the style? Oh, they struggled in their losses, but what did they look like in their wins? Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm kind of in the gray area of how can, again, as poorly as Alabama played, they lost by 2 points. They lost by 2 points to the number 8 team in the nation right now. So it's, okay, the way that you lose plays a factor, but the way that you win doesn't carry anything, especially of who you beat along the way.
Well, and I guess that's my problem. And I know for right now specifically, we're talking about Alabama. This is not just something that I think is bad because of Alabama. If I'm Miami, I'm pissed right now. You're telling me again. So not only is the committee telling you that, who you lose to is more important than who you beat, they're straight up telling you, you can have the same number of losses as somebody you beat head to head, but if you lost to teams that have a number next to them, we're going to value that more than we watched you beat a team with our own eyeballs, and that doesn't matter as much as who you lost to. That's a joke. That is idiotic. I'm sorry. That is embarrassing that this is a committee of members that get to select. And I feel like we do this every year, and it was only a matter of time this year, right, before they opened their mouths and you realized how flawed the system continues to be. But this is not just an Alabama thing. I think there's multiple teams that have a reason to really, really be ticked off at the way that this is going down. And just the fact that, the first question that Reese asked your check last night was about Notre Dame and Miami. He was talking about teams based on, if you listen to what he said, like they're in completely different stratospheres in the eyes of the committee. They're separated by 4 spots in the rankings. He straight up said, really the only thing that could help Miami is if teams ahead of them lose. Like, again, this is now 2 years in a row. Weird to go to Miami's defense, but the same thing happened last year where they straight up said with 2 weeks left to go in the season, yeah, we don't think there's anything else to evaluate Miami on. Like, they cut it off. They said, this is it. Like, we have made up our minds about Miami already. Everyone else, we haven't made up our minds yet, but we made up our mind about Miami. That's what they're telling you again. They did that again already. Doesn't matter who they beat head-to-head. Do you see who they lost to? Yeah, they lost to 2 unranked teams. Pretty good teams. Louisville was ranked recently. SMU, they're going to be ranked if they keep winning.
Yeah.
But heaven for oh god, you beat somebody head to head. That doesn't mean any. It's crazy. Like you want to hold Alabama over the coals for who they lost to in week one. Fair. If you want to do that, perfectly fine. But then you're just going to act like week one never happened and Miami never beat Notre Dame. It's messed up, man. It's really, really messy. So let's take a deeper dive into this because let's do some resume comparisons here. I think this will help paint more of a picture. And at the very least, we can just laugh at it because there's nothing we can do to change it. We're not the ones voting and making these decisions. But yeah, this was colossally stupid last night. That's really all that I have to say there. So let's look at some resumes, keep talking college football playoff, and our 5 SEC teams. Are they actually going to get in there when all is said and done? That's next here on JOX. I appreciate you joining us here on the Wednesday edition of Morning JOX. 621 here. Conrad and Damian with you until 7 o'clock when we hand you off to McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. As we continue on with the college football playoff discussion here a little bit. And unsurprisingly, I knew this was going to happen, but some of you chiming in on the courtesy GMC text line, oh, Conrad, stop whining. Alabama's going to be fine. They're in the playoff. It doesn't matter that they're behind Notre Dame. Well, two things. First off, I would be doing this if this was anybody, any situation, because you want the 12 best teams to be in the college football playoff. Granted, we don't get the 12 best teams because we still have to extend invitations to conferences that don't necessarily deserve it, but that's another story. But just because it's, yes, in this situation, are we talking about Alabama? We are. I know this is hard for some people to accept, but sometimes doing the right thing for college football would, in this case, also mean you were doing the right thing for Alabama. If you want to sit here and tell me that a team that beat 4 straight ranked opponents in the SEC, something that's never been done before, and they have a 10-2 record, and you think that they shouldn't be in the top 10? Again, it's about them assessing things fairly, and at the end of the day, the biggest issue I have with this, it's not where Alabama is today or where they'll be next week. It's we are another freaking year of this where the committee is telling you really doesn't matter who you beat. They are telling you that the thing that matters the most is not the quality of your wins. And I don't understand how that's not the number one metric in any sport.
Right. And that's
Did you beat the most teams or the most good teams?
Right. Alabama's done that.
I'm not saying they should be number one. They shouldn't be. And I get it. If you think, well, it's silly. Why does it matter if they're number 9 or number 10? I'll tell you why it matters if they're number 9 or number 10. What happens if Texas Tech loses the Big 12 championship game? You think they're still going to get in the playoff? I do.
That's a fact.
Well, who would not be in the playoff at that point? Alabama. And who knows? Maybe it takes care of itself, right? Missouri could beat Oklahoma this weekend. USC could beat Oregon this weekend, right? There could be some things that change. You know, maybe somebody subs their toe again. You know, Ole Miss loses the Egg Bowl, right? Like there's ways that this thing could move around, and it may not matter for a number of teams, not just Alabama. But again, you're setting a precedent again that playing high quality opponents and winning those games isn't the most important metric. And I can't fathom how we have still not gotten out of it. It's like they find a different way to rephrase it every year. And I'm honestly impressed that they keep finding ways to come up with this and make the same excuses and make the same arguments. It's almost impressive, like how many loopholes that they're able to find to do this. But that's the committee, and that's the way that they have decided to operate things. So it is what it is. All right, let's do a little blind resume comparison here to really get down to what do we think separates these teams. All right, so I have 4 teams here: Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, and Miami. All right, so let's start with Oklahoma because they're the highest ranked. They're number 8. So they have 3 ranked wins. They have wins over Alabama, number 10, Tennessee, number 20, and Michigan, number 18. All right, solid resume, 3 ranked wins. And their losses are only to ranked teams, Texas and Ole Miss. Solid. Notre Dame, they have 1 ranked win. They beat number 15 USC. That's a good win. It's a good one. And then they lost, obviously, to A&M and Miami the first 2 games of the season, as we know. Alabama, they have 4 ranked wins. They beat Georgia, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Missouri, who are all ranked in the top 25. And their losses are to number 8 Oklahoma and unranked Florida State. And then we have Miami. Their 1 ranked win is over number 9 Notre Dame. That's funny. It's a better win than Notre Dame has. That's their 1 ranked win, and then they have losses to Louisville and SMU, who are both unranked right now in the ACC. But my question really with that is, so Oklahoma is good enough to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame because they have more ranked wins,
which is fair.
They should be ahead of them. Absolutely. Oh, Alabama, they have more ranked wins than Oklahoma does, though.
That is true.
So why are they not also ahead of Notre Dame?
They had to. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's because they have they have a loss to Florida State there. Again, it's just you're telling me that Oklahoma is better because, I mean, if we're being honest here, let's see. Notre Dame lost to the number 3 and number 13 teams. Oklahoma lost to the number 17 and number 6 team. Sounds like Notre Dame has better losses to me than Oklahoma. So by that metric, wouldn't they be ahead of Oklahoma?
Yeah, if
'Cause that's what
That's what
matters.
you're weighing on.
But then Alabama's behind them because of their but the wins don't. You see what I'm saying? You see
Yeah.
where this doesn't make sense is, okay, so you're going to reward Oklahoma as they should. They should be ahead of Notre Dame. They earned that. They should be ahead of Alabama. They earned that. But you're now going to tell me that Notre Dame is better than Alabama because they have better losses than Alabama, but Oklahoma has worse, or Notre Dame has better losses than Oklahoma, but they're not ahead of them because you see where I kind of hit a wall here because they have contradicted themselves. And I know I'm trying to make sense of something that's not going to make sense.
Right. And then we talk about teams that have quote unquote good. See, like Vanderbilt's kind of in no man's land because they have a ranked win over Mizzou, common opponent, and Alabama. Alabama knocks off Mizzou as well. But then the head-to-head with Vanderbilt, Alabama has that. And they also have a loss to Texas. And that's where I'm trying to make sense of it all of.
Oh, those are good losses. They should be up there with Notre Dame.
Right. That's why I'm kind of just I don't know what the committee values more as far as okay, I understand the last game that we saw Alabama play, they lost to Oklahoma, but again, Oklahoma was a top 12 football team when they lost to them. And the wins that they have against ranked opponents, they on paper, they have the best win in college football over the number 4 team in the nation in Georgia. On the road in Athens, where Ole Miss, who had the same opportunity, who's ranked number 6 right now, went to Athens and lost. So I don't know. My biggest issue with the committee is if we're going to talk about, especially with Hunter Yurchek after the fact was saying, you know, the way Alabama looked in those losses. Well, you also have to take into account, to me, even in a higher regard, is the way they looked in the wins against ranked opponents. So, to me, I would say that the Georgia win carries more weight than an Oklahoma loss. But because the Oklahoma loss is so recent, okay, yeah, you move them down spots, but you still can't justify how they could still be behind Notre Dame when a Notre Dame win, the only one they have is what, USC, and it's just that's not enough. Like I don't think the losses outweigh the wins unless it's like a blowout, because you lost by 2 to a number 12 team in the nation,
Yeah.
and you played atrociously, like you did, and you still only lost by 2. So that's where I'm like,
They didn't look like themselves against LSU, though, Damian.
But what was the end result? A dub.
Didn't look like themselves.
Yeah, Indiana went toe-to-toe, took a miraculous catch for them to beat Penn State. Still looked at his number 2 team in the nation.
That's a tough place to play, and that's a
Texas A&M.
That's a promising program.
Texas A&M was down by 6,000 in the first half against South Carolina. Still came back and they won the football
Doesn't
game.
matter. They didn't beat them by 2 touchdowns like Alabama, so that got held against them.
So, like, I don't know. And even the Ohio State win over Texas almost means nothing anymore. Like, it's just kind of, okay, well, that was the first game of the season. Well, Alabama also lost to Florida State in the first game of the season. So it's, I don't know what the committee truly values especially when they start looking.
They don't even know what they value. They're contradicting themselves around every turn. Why is Michigan not ahead of Texas? Texas has 3 losses. Michigan's 2 losses are to Oklahoma and USC, both teams in the top 15.
Teams, right.
Texas lost to a bad Florida team.
On the road.
They got dominated by them.
But they had the Oklahoma win.
Like, it's right there in front. I'm sorry. Like, if you think I'm complaining, I'm sorry. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, they are blatantly talking out of their ass. Like, I'm sorry. They are. It's a joke. It is a joke. And I get it. At the end of the day, you know, it'll all take care of itself. We hope, fingers crossed, that they don't box themselves in and put themselves in another situation like last year. But I mean, seriously, it's idiotic stuff, man. It's crazy that every year we have a new committee and they find new ways to show that they just seems pretty simple to me. You reward teams for the quality of the opponents that they beat. And yes, it's very important who you lose to, and that's absolutely something that is held against them. But I didn't think we'd enter a day and age in college football where you are straight up telling people We care more about who you lost to than who you won. Doesn't matter if you beat a bunch of ranked teams. Did you lose to ranked teams? Great. Then we're going to view you more highly than somebody that can go and beat 4 times the ranked opponent. 4 times. Alabama, Notre Dame, and Oregon have combined to beat 5 ranked opponents this year. Alabama is the lowest ranked out of them. They have 4 of those 5. Oregon has 0. Notre Dame has 1. But I digress. All right, let's change it up a little bit. Let's get into the coaching carousel because there's an interesting story came out yesterday about John Cohen and the Auburn coaching search. And we have a little taste of John Sumrall. For those of you who wonder why does everybody love this John Sumrall guy? We're going to show you why when we come back here on JOX. .635, welcome back into Morning JOX. Conrad and Damian with you. Trying to move off of the college football playoff discussion. I got a little worked up this morning, but then I saw the pictures of Bill Belichick last night at his girlfriend's co-ed cheerleading practice, and I felt a lot better. It could always be worse.
It could. It could. You could be the head coach of North Carolina.
You could be. At a co-ed adult cheerleading competition watching your...
Hey, man, it's all about supporting your significant other,
And
brother.
I respect him for doing that, but, man, he did not look like he was having a great time.
Just imagine if you're like an usher. It's like, oh, you here to watch your granddaughter? You here to watch your... No, I'm here to watch my girlfriend.
I feel like they probably get that one a lot.
I was like...
Oh, it's so nice that you took your granddaughter out to dinner. Well, kind of do it every night. All right, the Auburn coaching search. What's going on there? Because we hope, or John Cohen at least has declared that he hopes 10 days from now, maybe you'll have a new coach at Auburn, right? Within 24 hours or so of the end of the Iron Bowl would be ideal for Auburn. But we know that they're hoping to make something happen pretty quickly there after the end of the regular season. And we all feel pretty good about John Summerall. I think we feel that that's the leader in the clubhouse right now. And until we are told differently, it seems like that's going to be the guy for the Auburn Tigers. But now maybe, Tulane in the playoff mix now, so maybe you have to wait a little bit longer to make that hire if the Green Wave continue winning football games. But let's hear from John Summerall here really quickly. And so this was a quote I heard from him yesterday. So this was him at his press conference, and he was asked about Tulane being in the top 25 and, being that group of 5 team that's kind of up there in the playoff bracket as it stands right now. And this is the kind of stuff I was talking about. When people have asked, why do people like John Summerall? I know he's won, but, what makes him special? And you got to listen to the press conferences because, again, this is one of those guys I would run through a brick wall for. I think you listen to this guy and you're like, man, that's somebody I would want my kids to go play for. And that's a special thing. So this is John Summerall again. Listen to him yesterday. This is him talking about his Tulane team after they got ranked in the top 25.
I mean, I'll just be very candid. There's some days I feel like we're one of the bottom 25 teams in the country watching us play. So, if we want to start feeling comfortable or casual about somebody wanting to vote us in the top 25 teams, there must be a lot of bad football going on if we're one of the top 25 teams. So, I mean, there must be some really bad football played right now in college football. So, I don't know. We're average. We're an average team. We get every 6 or 7 days, depending on the schedule of the week, to promote ourselves or embarrass ourselves. We've done that before. So we better get ready to play.
Sounds like somebody that remembers the UTSA game from a couple of weeks ago. But see, that right there, that's why, again, I know that's just one clip, but that's the kind of stuff right there. When I hear that, I'm like, all right, I want that dude to coach my football program. Because he gets it, right? It's okay, great. He's not saying that he's not happy for the kids for being ranked and that they haven't worked hard to get to this point, but he understands that look at what's happened the last 3 weeks of the playoff rankings, right? There's been a different group of 5 representative in the bracket every week because people keep losing. And so he understands that, hey, the second we get comfortable, we're going to be that next team to lose. And at 9-3, nobody cares about us in a college football playoff. So I thought that was a really cool perspective from him. And again, he seems to get it, right? And what's right about leading a group of young men and how to motivate them and keep them focused on the goal ahead and, not celebrating too early in the season. So I thought that was just kind of a good example last night of one of the things about John Summerall that if you're an Auburn fan, that you should be excited about this guy because that's the kind of attitude that he's going to bring to the Plains.
Yeah, and like when you look at the grand scheme of it all, and it's so different in this coaching search as opposed to a couple of years ago where it just kind of, like you look at the names and it doesn't necessarily wow you, but it gets to a point where I don't know if it's apathy starting to set in or is it kind of, okay, because I talk to a lot of Auburn fans, and some of them are on the fence about John Summerall. They're like, well, he's never done it in the SEC as the head man, so what makes me to believe that he can go in there and fix these things? And then I hear stuff like this. I'm like, man, if I was a player, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can rock with this. I can rock with it. Like, he's straight up. Like, he's not going to talk about how close we are. It's either we're either a good team or we're not. There's no middle ground. And you got to have that. Like, John Summerall to me, and I've never met him. I've only heard him a few times. He's been on Mac and Q and things like that. When you listen to him, he's very transparent. It's just like, hey, I'm going to be honest. We know what the task is that's ahead of us. Like, he gives us a coach speak but it also feels as though he understands the pulse of what his team is. Like, I don't have a question about what the identity is going to be if he were to be the head coach at Auburn, where we were having those conversations week to week with Hugh Freeze of, okay, is this going to be an air raid week? Is this going to be a team that's focused on running the football? No, I think what John Summerall is going to do is look at what his team can do, what is effective, and that's what we're going to lean into. We're not going to be something that we're not. And the more I hear his name, the more I'm like, you know what? I actually think this could potentially work. And again, he's kind of had the pick of the litter in situations right now of there's so many other teams that could, reach out to him, and whoever throws him the best offer, or whichever offer he thinks is the best for him, he's gonna have some pretty good teams to kind of take a hold of and swing that thing around for next year.
Yeah, and if you're, again, if you're Auburn, not saying that I'm sure that they clearly seem to have a sense of urgency when it comes to this, but I think now you start to wonder, right, if the whole Lane Kiffin situation, right? Ole Miss, that's another place that, from what I understand, would love to have a guy like John Summerall if Lane Kiffin were to leave. So, that could be another component of this, I guess competition, so to speak, of these different programs going after John Summerall. But certainly still the leader in the clubhouse as far as the Auburn Tigers appear to be concerned. Now the guy making that hire, that's John Cohen. He did another sit-down with AL.com here the other day. And just a couple of interesting notes in here that I was reading this article from Peter Raudikus, who did a great job on this story. He's a somewhat regular guest with us on a three-man front here. You probably heard him a couple of times. But some of the highlights from John Cohen, a big emphasis was made on DJ Durkin and his desire to retain him. Not saying like as the head coach necessarily, but he does say, yes, he's still a candidate for the head coaching job, but he wants DJ Durkin to be a member of this football program for the foreseeable future. I would assume continuing to be the defensive coordinator. And John Cohen even said that this is something he's discussed with all of the head coaching candidates he's talked to. He has brought up DJ Durkin and how he wants him to be a part of the next staff moving forward. And he says that there's been a lot of positive questions or positive conversations on that note with the candidates. So that certainly seems to be a sign of good things there. But he also said that when it comes to DJ Durkin, he's looking at not only what he's going to do and has already done as the interim coach, but he's also going to obviously take into account his time at Maryland and kind of his overall resume as a head coach. Because this is a quote from the article. It says, when asked about his evaluation and the impact of the remaining games on DJ Durkin's candidacy, John Cohen said, quote, "When I watch us play this Saturday, more will be revealed. After the Iron Bowl, more will be revealed. There's so many factors. Do our kids play relaxed? Do our kids play tight? How do they respond? I think all that matters. I really do. But at the same time, 3 games is a snapshot. So it's hard to judge someone as a head coach when they have 3 games to prove themselves. I don't necessarily think that that's a fair evaluation," end quote. So that's John Cohen. They're talking about DJ Durkin. And, of course, DJ Durkin, kind of mentioned this the other day at his press conference that him and Mr. Cohen have had a couple of sit-down conversations and that he essentially views every day like an interview for the head coaching job, and that makes a lot of sense. So there you go. Now, this is John Cohen. He's talking a little bit here about kind of the timeline and having to maybe interview a candidate that could be in the college football playoff. He said, quote, "Each candidate's playing for something different, whether it's a conference title or CFP opportunity. When you're on this side of it and you offer an opportunity like ours, that's the decision of that person and that institution. So I can't answer to you how they would respond if they're put in that position," end quote. So, again, obviously certain teams, John Summerall, again, as it stands right now, going to have to wait a little bit to hire a guy like that. If you, gave it to DJ Durkin, obviously you wouldn't. If you went and got an Eli Drinkwitz, right? You're not going to have to wait for the playoff for that. So, again, we'll see how this all happens. But, John Cohen's come out previously and said he would like to have a new coach within about 24 hours of the end of the Iron Bowl. So we'll see if that's able to be done there for Auburn. But all things seem to be chugging along nicely with the coaching search, as John Summerall is still the leader in the clubhouse. And, of course, we'll keep you up to date on everything we're hearing there on the Plains as we move on. But a lot of you chiming in this morning, a lot of you have your thoughts on the college football playoff. Some of you agree with me, some of you don't. And that's great. We'll get to hear all of it next here on Morning JOX. Oh, 205-834-9450. That's how you can find yourself on the Courtesy GMC text line, as many of you take advantage of each and every day here on Morning Jocks. And myself and Damien, we love getting to interact with y'all each and every day and hearing your thoughts. And a lot of people weighing in this morning on the college football playoff discussion. I certainly had some issues with the committee last night and the way that not as much yes, we're kind of splitting hairs on the actual rankings. It's more so about the philosophy and the precedents that they are setting that I just think are stupid, for lack of a better word. And some of you agreeing with that, some of you not so much with what Damien and I had to say this morning. Let's see. Jimmy texts in this morning. He says, eventually y'all will realize that wins and losses matter. If Bama took care of business, then it doesn't matter. Just stop complaining and win your games. Fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Nobody's disagreeing.
No, they both absolutely matter.
Right.
But you're telling me, this
is the situation we're presented with.
Yeah, you're telling me that it matters more who you lost to than who you beat.
Right. I thought wins would carry more weight.
Okay, imagine you're a salesperson, right? And you have some really, really big clients, some really, really big accounts. Okay, let's say they don't come through for you, right? But you got really close to cutting a deal with them, really close. You think you should get more credit because you got really close with those big accounts? It didn't mean anything. It didn't amount to anything, but you got really close with them. Or should it mean more of the actual business that you went and sold to maybe some medium-sized clients? Maybe that's not a perfect analogy, but again, I'm just saying, like in other fields, so we're saying where you failed, like we're going to assess how you failed more seriously than where you succeeded. That it just seems a little backwards to me, in my opinion. Let's see. It says, whose fans aren't complaining about the CFP rankings? Ohio State. They took care of business. Oh my God. Please go look at their schedule. And then come back and let's have a serious discussion about that. And I think Ohio State absolutely deserves to be the number one. I mean, they're undefeated, defending national champions. I think they're great. I think they're the best team in football. Doesn't mean they played anybody. Let's see. Drake chimes in. He says, the truth is the college football playoff rankings will never make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
Fair enough.
Probably not. Let's see. This one says, Auburn's potential returning roster is better than the roster of any other schools looking for a head coach, including LSU and Florida. They have several potential first-rounders on the Auburn defense that will transfer if Durkin isn't retained, including Xavier Atkins. That would seem like a total waste. Well, I think that's a big part of why you have John Cohen saying he would love to retain DJ Durkin, because he wants a lot of those guys to come back and stay. Wow, we actually have an Ohio State in here talking smack. But hey, I like this attitude. He says, you can complain about our record all we want, or our schedule all we want, but we're going back to back. I mean, yeah, obviously, like, no, it's working out great for them.
Yeah, you're handling business.
Y'all are smarter than us, right? You actually listened to the committee and you said, oh, they don't care about big wins. And credit to them, right? They scheduled Texas. That wasn't.
It's not looked at the same, but.
No, but I mean, credit to them for playing that game.
And you won the football game.
Yeah, it's just, good for you on playing Rutgers. And getting those big wins over Purdue and all those fantastic football programs. Let's see. This one says, wins matter more than losses. Auburn fans focused on almost winning more than any other fan. I just read them. Let's see. It says, when you lose to a 5-5 FSU team, yes, losses matter more than wins. So you're saying that we should judge Alabama more on the loss to Florida State than their win over Georgia. If that's what you think, that's fair. I'm just... That seems kind of backwards to me,
right.
But that's fair. Again, I'm not saying you don't acknowledge the loss to Florida State. That was a bad loss. It was. No way around it. Not trying to sugarcoat that at all. It was a bad loss. But again, it's about the precedent of this. Why would you go and schedule difficult matchups if the committee's just going to tell you it doesn't matter who you beat? We're going to measure you more on who you lost to. So go beat a bunch of really crappy teams and don't lose.
Yep.
Again, I go back to... If this is truly how they feel, then they would reflect this in the entirety of the rankings, and they do not. Again, why is a Michigan team with 2 losses to ranked teams behind a 3-loss Texas team that got dominated by a bad Florida team? Like, again, I'm not saying that necessarily the way that they're going about it is wrong. If that's truly the metrics that are most important to them, so be it. I think it's dumb, but so be it. But they're not even holding true to that throughout the entire top 25. It's just when they want it to account for something, they bring it up. That's the problem. That's the frustrating part. They're contradicting themselves. Let's see. It says the committee's BS excuses were okay when they left undefeated FSU out and no one pushed back. Now they continue to do it in different ways, but it's Bama. Just win the games used to be the metric. I'm sorry. If you still think that Florida State team deserved to get in a playoff, I don't know what to tell you. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Mac and Cube, those guys